Chapter 550, The Iron Pillar Under the Sea. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. The Emberkilin had a huge body, which was 700 feet long after unfolding its wings. It burned with roaring flames, which seemed to change the seawater into lava. The Emberkilin caught up with the primitive world soldiers and red cloud pythons so fast they could not even run away. Without being able to even utter a heart-rending cry, they caught fire and were instantly turned into flying ashes. A moment later, the Emberkilin nearly overtook Zhang Yuochen, getting closer and closer. It was about to catch hold of him. Zhang Yuochen touched the storage ring and took out the imperial edict issued by Elder Xuanji. Swoosh! He mobilized his genuine qi and injected it into the imperial edict. It gave off wisps of white holy qi, which flew around Zhang Yuochen and condensed into Elder Xuanji's illusory image, emitting a formidable sacred qi. Elder Xuanji's illusory image was about 30 feet high and glowing with white light. It overlapped Zhang Yuochen's body. Seeing Elder Xuanji's illusory image, the Emberkilin felt a formidable aura fluctuation. It stopped for a while and looked scared. The imperial edict's appearance was like the presence of a saint, which was able to overawe all living beings and force them to kneel down and kowtow. However, each imperial edict represented a different power. In order to experience Zhang Yuochen, Elder Xuanji only put the power of speed into the imperial edict. When encountering danger that could not be resisted, Zhang Yuochen could immediately escape 10,000 miles away as long as he injected genuine qi into the imperial edict. If he wanted to, Elder Xuanji could certainly give Zhang Yuochen an imperial edict that had saint power. In that case, it would do only harm to Zhang Yuochen and no good at all. Once someone possessed a strong external force, they would no longer practice hard. Swoosh! With the aid of the holy qi of the imperial edict, Zhang Yuochen seemed to be helped by the gods. He turned into a ray of white light and rushed into the bottom of the trench, escaping the Emberkilin's attacks. In the next moment, Zhang Yuochen arrived at the bottom ahead of Black Skeleton Flood Dragon King and Monklidai. He fell on a hard slate under the sea. Theoretically, the water temperature down on the bottom should be very low. However, the water at the bottom of the bloody trench was very hot. Standing in this water was like standing in a frying pan. Only when a monk at the second change in the fish dragon realm realized skin refining to gold could he withstand this temperature. Perhaps Huang Shenyi could come here with the aid of some treasure. According to Zhang Yuochen's orders, Huang Yanjun, Aoxinyan, and Orange Star Emissary had already reached the bottom of the trench. Thus, they did not die from the Emberkilin's fire. Watching Zhang Yuochen fall down, they immediately went over and joined him. Zhang Yuochen asked, "Have you found the Xuanwu heritage place?" Huang Yanjun looked solemn and said, "We are on the back of Xuanwu's corpse now." A moment ago, Zhang Yuochen had not had enough time to observe the bottom of the sea because he was busy running for his life. But upon hearing Huang Yanjun's words, he began to look at his surroundings carefully. An iron pillar with a 30-foot diameter stood not far away from him. Like a sea-calming needle, it was inserted into the stones under the sea, soaring thousands of feet high. Nobody knew how much this huge iron pillar might have weighed, and nobody knew how long this iron pillar had been soaking in the water. Its surface was already rusty. Strange prints could be seen on the iron pillar through the rust. Some prints were like bones, some were like ferocious ghosts, and some were like evil flowers. Zhang Yuochen walked over and touched the iron pillar. In an instant, a formidable power entered his body through his fingers. Woo! All of a sudden, hundreds of millions of screams of undead evil spirits resounded and many bloody images emerged in his mind. Like a mass of black ink, the power of abundant evil qi began to corrode his martial soul. Just then, the mark of the gods on his qi shone and drove the awful evil qi out, as if the light had smashed through the gloom. He seemed to have received a jolt of electricity, and he immediately withdrew his fingers and took 2 steps back. With a look of surprise on his face, he said, "What horrible death qi this is! Thanks to the mark of the gods, I did not become a senseless monster." A little while ago, He felt as if he had been dragged into an evil world by this iron pillar. There were white-boned creatures as large as lofty mountains. A blood-red eye was flying in the sky. Black ghosts flew out from the abyss and turned into a strange black cloud mass. That world was like the hell from the legends. Huang Yanqun looked confused, unconsciously walked next to the iron pillar, and slowly reached out her hands. "Don't touch it. It is an evil weapon." Zhang Yuochen grasped her waist and pulled her away from it. Huang Yanqun immediately came to her senses and her eyes lit up again. She said in great fear, "That iron pillar can influence my mind. What on earth is it?" Zhang Yuochen shook his head gently. He. Blackie stretched out his claws and scratched off some rust on the iron pillar, revealing 3 golden marks. "Being free from the influence of the evil force," he said. "This is a weapon." Then, he continued, "It doesn't seem to come from Kunlun's field." "How can you tell?" Orange Star Emissary asked. Blackie stared at Orange Star Emissary and said fluidly, "Because the forging method is different. The weapons of Kunlun's field are based on inscriptions. However, this iron pillar has no inscription." Blackie pressed his claws on the iron pillar and mobilized all his strength, hoping to pull it out. No matter how much power he used, the iron pillar remained motionless. "My goodness, even a half-saint can't pick it up." Blackie withdrew his claws and slipped backward 2 steps, hurriedly taking 2 breaths. Bang! Zhang Yuochen ran his genuine qi into his legs. He stomped downward, shattering the thick stone layer. Stones fell down in succession. Inside the stone layer, Xuan Wu's shell finally appeared. Xuan Wu was so colossal that just its shell was several miles long. If it were standing on the ground, it would look like a mountain. When the stone layer on the outside of its body completely shattered, everyone could see that the iron pillar pierced through its body from its back, nailing Xuan Wu to the bottom of the trench. Actually, the blood spring of the bloody trench had been formed by this. The blood flew out of Xuan Wu's body and dyed the seawater within hundreds of miles red. Everyone was shocked by the image in front of them and they were unable to speak for a long time. Zhang Yuochen frowned and said, "It is indeed not a pure blood Xuan Wu of the ancient mythical beasts but a cyan fire Xuan Wu, which is Xuan Wu's offspring. According to its bulky body and the aura that it sends forth, I think that it could tear up a saint if it were alive." "Who on earth could have killed such a strong cyan fire Xuan Wu?" Blackie said, "It must be the iron pillar's master." Zhang Yuochen said, "Xuan Wu's back is its most defensive area, but the iron pillar was able to pierce through its body from its back. Thus, it's obvious that the iron pillar's master is remarkably strong." "You mentioned that the iron pillar was forged in a different way from the refining method of Kunlun's field." "As far as I know, the refining methods of all the major primitive worlds are very similar to that of Kunlun's field, without too much difference." "Then, which primitive world does the iron pillar's master come from?" "The iron pillar's master can kill a cyan fire Xuan Wu, indicating that he is absolutely a formidable superior. Aside from Kunlun's field, other superior class primitive worlds are unlikely to give birth to such a superior." Zhang Yuochen had a bad feeling. He always felt that the evil world that emerged in his mind before could possibly exist, and the iron pillar's master might come from there. If so, was there a big world as powerful as Kunlun's field in the vast universe? Perhaps that world was even more powerful and horrible than Kunlun's field. The monk from that world had already come to the surroundings of Kunlun's field. However, the monks from Kunlun's field had not discovered their world. In a flash, countless ideas emerged in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more horrified Zhang Yuochen got. He became chilled, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. "It must be my random thoughts. There are so many primitive worlds around Kunlun's field, so it is very normal to give birth to a small evil world. This Xuan Wu has already been dead for many years. If there was a big world that was more powerful than Kunlun's field, it should have invaded Kunlun's field on a large scale. We couldn't have missed their traces." Zhang Yuochen tried to convince himself and calm himself down. Fire came down from overhead and the sea became burning hot before he was able to think about it further. The Ember Killin had chased after Black Skeleton Flood Dragon King and Monk Lidai, and was rushing down hurriedly. Having sensed the great power from above, Huang Yanqun, Xianyan, and Orange Star Emissary all changed their facial expressions. They almost kneeled down as if they were being suppressed by 9 lofty mountains. They could not bear the half-saint class power. "Let's hide inside Xuanwu's body first," Zhang Yuochen said. Zhang Yuochen was able to perceive that the Xuanwu heritage was inside of this Xuanwu. There were only 2 entrances to Xuanwu's body, which were its eyes. Xuanwu's eyeballs had already been corroded, revealing only 2 10-foot-high black holes. Through the holes, one could go inside the body, far-reaching and bottomless. Like a colorful waterfall, wisps of Xuanwu chi poured out of its eyes and flew into the sea, vanishing from sight. Standing in its left eye, Zhang Yuochen looked down. He looked at the iron pillar that had pierced through Xuanwu's body and exited out of its abdomen and was inserted into the underground lava. Below Xuanwu's body was a boiling red lava lake. As if they had been stimulated, humanoid fish rushed out of the lava and attacked Zhang Yuochen and the others.